Just in February, I decided to jump back into Jojo, and after I got 40,000 views on my Stardust Crusaders video, thank you, I started rewatching all of Part 1 and Part 2 of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. And after just completing Battle Tendency for the second time, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is everything I love about anime and more. So, let's get into it. After completing Phantom Blood, which I have a video for on my channel, links in the description, I decided it was time to rewatch Battle Tendency via the recuts. And let me just say to everyone I offended with my Season 1 review of Jojo, I'm sorry. I was wrong because Jojo is indeed that freaking good, and I'm just a goober for thinking it was so bad it's good. Or whatever nonsense I said. As Jojo would say, you are even crazier than I, past self. So how is Battle Tendency an anime that is in itself an example of everything I love about anime? Well, it's really simple. I can break it down into these three things. Good characters, good story, and most importantly, good fights. And these three aspects play on each other really well. They're like the three pillars of this show in many ways. And while they are all equal to me, let's start by jumping into the fights. Jojo versus Cars. What can I say? This fight gave the idea for this video in the first place. This fight exemplifies everything that is so good about Jojo's action. They're unpredictable in the sense that once you think Cars is dead in the volcano, suddenly he comes out of the ground and chops off Joseph's arm. And just when you think the fight is over, when you can finally jump out of your seat and cheer on Jojo for defeating the immortal Cars, he's still alive. Because after all, he is goddamn immortal. Because while Cars seemingly goes out in a Jojo style via volcano, well, the show has other plans because they immediately top that by sending his ass into space to defeat him. This, of course, is what Jojo's fights are the best at. Once you think you've seen it all, Jojo finds a way to deliver the goods in unique and interesting ways. Another example is when Cars dangles Lisa from a rope and Jojo rather on the spot creates a plan which allows him to save Lisa and cause Cars to fall into a pit of murder thingies. And the way they do it is brilliant. Jojo lights his scarf on fire to distract Cars while he ties the rope that Lisa is on to his leg and using the other as a trap. It's just funny because you know something is going to happen, and just like how Jojo distracts Cars with the visual of the scarf on fire, Jojo in turn distracts the viewers and surprises us again. I could give more and more examples of this, but another important part of the fights is the show's ability to add these small little details that make up a world of difference. Things like when Caesar walks on water and you see this very nice ripple effect, or when Jojo uses that "I know what you're gonna say next" gag and they always repeat them and are always surprised by it somehow. Or how the show describes small things like when Lisa says she'll take the breathing mask off Jojo for food and toothbrushes. It's just really small things like that which help the show build its own identity. And Battle Tendency's story for sure has an identity of its own, one that I greatly appreciate. Much like Phantom Blood, there is still an obvious uptick in quality for the story as it goes along, but Battle Tendency starts off in a far better place than Phantom Blood. This is because Araki at this point had been doing Jojo for a while and more or less knew how to move the series forward. The story is absurd, ridiculous fun you'd come to expect from the series' prior installment, but the build is absolutely superb. Battle Tendency really kicks off with the fight against Saviento, which plays an important role in establishing the immortal vampires, and also, at the same time, being pretty nice callbacks to Jonathan Joestar and Dio Brando. I really enjoyed this whole fight because it introduced Jojo's goofy personality and jokester attitude, but as well introduced von Stroheim, who I guess is an evil Nazi who turns into a good guy, but still is a Nazi? I'm not sure, but his role in the last battle of Battle Tendency, that should be a whole name on its own, is super important, which goes to show how important this scene really is. But this also establishes the immortal vampires as power, like their one weakness being the sun and UV light, but also the importance of Jojo finding a weakness other than those things, as later on, Cars obviously overcomes those weaknesses until he's sent to fucking space. I guess you could say that Saviento's role in this anime is probably the most important role in the series. It helps to establish the most important story mechanics in the series going forward, and surprisingly there are more tidbits to be had from these episodes when, for example, Jojo chops off Stroheim's leg. Later on, way down the road in the show, he makes a reference to this very moment, stating he still has nightmares about it. This also reinforces my prior point that Jojo has so many strengths, and one of those is its ability to turn something small into something that affects the story and its characters. Speaking of, the show's final ingredient is those characters. I don't know how many other anime are out there that has me like so many of them, genuinely, even though they're bad guys. I like Joseph, I like Caesar, Cars, Wamu, Lisa, and Suzy Q. It also speaks to this show's character writing that they get Von Stroheim to be somewhat likable, but that should be almost impossible otherwise. But this show does it, and that's because it kinda can, and it knows it can, so it'll do it. One of the most fascinating characters is Lisa, who turns out to be Jojo's 50-year-old mother. She doesn't look 50, and that doesn't matter, because why the hell not? And she's awesome too. She's this seemingly elegant woman, but she is hard on her students like Caesar and Jojo, which for Jojo she puts a restrictive breathing mask on just as an example. She's also incredibly smart and can keep composed at the worst of times, even killing the zombie that killed her husband immediately after it happened. She's badass. And then, of course, you have Jojo, who, just like how I praised him in Stardust Crusaders, I will praise him here yet again. He's hilarious. The best thing about him is that during all sorts of intense fights, he is able to bring out the funny side of himself and crack a joke or one-liner. This obviously makes him very charming and endearable. He's also very smart and can think of a plan to get him out of a bind on the spot, as evident when he saves Lisa from Cars. You can always count on Joseph to make everything entertaining, and his ability to add spontaneity to a series like this is impressive. Joseph is everything I want in a battle anime protag. He's not dumb, he has a personality, and my god, does he have a fashion sense. I can't believe I didn't like this show before. No, really, I was so wrong about what I initially said about this anime that I almost feel stupid for making the video in the first place. Then again, I wasn't as good as I am now when it comes to making videos and scripting my thoughts. I think the reason that I disliked Jojo so much initially is because, well, one, I wasn't very good at reviewing anime back then, but also of the way I used to watch anime. I'd sit down and just binge anime constantly back in the day, since this is around the time that I had tons of free time in my day to do stuff like that. So, in turn, I wasn't able to fully appreciate the anime as I had 8 other anime I was trying to watch at the same time. But these days, I don't watch anime like that. And in a week now, I'd watch about half as much as I'd watch in a couple days back then. This made me miss so many details on my first watch, or rather, didn't pay attention to some of them outright. Details like when colors would get inverted to add a stylistic charm, or when the show would use text to add a detail that the manga would have. Something that makes Jojo incredibly unique. That's a thing most anime don't even do these days, but Jojo does because, well, like I said earlier, it will because it can. And that's one of the most charming and refreshing things about this anime. This anime doesn't try to be something it's not. It is in every way a true Jojo experience from beginning to end. And that's impressive because Phantom Blood prior to Battle Tendency wasn't, to me at least, the most impressive or original anime I had ever seen. But almost everything about Battle Tendency is night and day compared to Phantom Blood. The action is way more intense for one. The fight with San Viento, which, as an aside, I can't figure out exactly why this is. Someone please put it on the comments if you know, but San Viento is a Crunchyroll subs and English dub change, as the character is known otherwise as Santana, of course named after the famous guitar player and rock group. But San Viento in general is awesome, and his presence in the fight shows in real time the improvements from Phantom Blood to Battle Tendency. For one, it's more of a fight. There are peaks and valleys, and it feels very well paced. There is no big power-up or unneeded extension to the fight. I was practically glued to my seat when they were trying to open the door to the surface to burn up San Viento. And it's a good example of showing growth too, because the fights with the other Pillar Men are intense and grueling, whereas I feel like Jojo could have easily handled San Viento after fighting even one of the other Pillar Men in those later fights. It's important to show growth, and Jojo is good at showing that growth. You are on a journey with these characters, so make it feel like one. Let them struggle. Let them get defeated, because that's what makes these characters more endearable. The wins is not what makes a character more human, but it's the losses that make them human. And that's something shonen anime like Dragon Ball Z could use some these days. These are only really basic observations about Battle Tendency, but it reminded me why I love anime so much in general. I don't like it because of one single reason, really. I love it because it's such a different medium, and Jojo contextualizes all of these things into a single series. It's got awesome fights that are highly memorable, it's got characters you want to actually root for, and it has the story to back itself up and prove that it's more than just memes. I was so wrong initially about this show, and I'm so glad that I gave it another shot. And that begs the question, what is Jojo to you? To me, it's a reminder of why I love anime. So, put down the comments below. What is Jojo to you? And with that being said, I want to say thank you everybody for tuning into this video. It's really important to me that you did, and while you're here, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, click on some of these videos, and you can also support me by throwing me $1 on Patreon. It's optional. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.